3 hours before her wedding, she catches her fiancé in bed with her own cousin. That alone should have ended the story, but this was never just about cheating, because the man waiting at the altar was not simply a groom. He was a mafia boss who believed love was ownership, marriage was control, and loyalty could be forced. What happened that day was bigger than betrayal. It was the moment a woman stopped being his possession and became the reason his empire began to fall.
That morning, Adriana Varley was meant to be bound to a predator. She would instead walk towards another man at the altar, igniting a firestorm that would engulf Chicago's underworld. The catalyst came 3 hours prior, finding her betrothed with her cousin. Most would have fled or frozen in place. Adriana chose a far deadlier path. She went to the wedding, activated a strategy months in the making, and married someone else. 300 guests looked on as her fiancé, the crime lord, watched his empire start to crumble. How this story unfolds is yet to be fully known. Let us know where you are watching from. Let us return to the moment the foundations cracked. The air in the villa suite was thick with costly perfume and betrayal. At the doorway, Adriana stopped, her wedding gown sheathed in its bag, watching a scene designed for ultimate psychic torment. Her intended, Lucian Moretti, a name whispered with fear in Chicago, was tangled in the sheets with her cousin, Isabella. The pair remained oblivious to her presence. A soft, triumphant cry from Isabella filled the room. Adriana's knuckles whitened on the doorframe. No tears fell, no sound escaped her. She was an unwavering spectator. This moment would be identified as the turning point, not for what she saw, but for the chilling lack of feeling she showed. No surge of pain, no gasp of surprise. Just a cold, lucid truth flooded her senses. Deep down, she had always known this, had buried the diagnosis of Lucian's true nature. Isabella noticed her first, jumping with a predictable shock that would have been comical in another setting. Isabella clutched at a sheet, a useless bid for decorum, as if fabric could undo the last 60 seconds. Lucian turned his head, slow and cat-like, his eyes locked with Adriana's, showing no remorse, only a cool appraisal, like a general sizing up a problem. "Adriana," his voice was placid, entirely untroubled. He stood, indifferent to his nakedness. "You're early." That was all he offered. No excuse, no regret, just a comment on her timing. Isabella scrambled from the bed, pulling the sheet tight. "Audrey, this isn't... We didn't mean..." "Leave," Adriana said, her tone low. Her cousin froze. "What?" "I said, leave." Adriana's voice was flat, devoid of emotion. Her eyes never left Lucian. "Get dressed and get out now." Isabella glanced at Lucian, waiting for him to override the command and take control. He only watched Adriana with an air of remote interest. Isabella gathered her things and ran, her departure a sharp, shameful clicking of heels on stone. The door clicked shut. A heavy silence filled the space. Lucian, completely at ease in his skin, crossed to the bar. He poured a whiskey, ignoring the hour. Sunlight from the immense windows bathed him in gold, tracing the scars on his chest, the map of a past he had never shared. "We should talk about the service," he said, tasting his whiskey. "The photographer arrives at 11. We have to..." "You think this wedding is still happening?" Her words were flat, an assertion. Lucian faced her, one brow arched. "Of course it is." "I found you with my cousin." He just shrugged, an act of supreme unconcern. "Isabella means nothing. You know that." "Do I, Adriana?" He set his glass aside and stalked toward her, a hunter's grace in his step. Men like Lucian Moretti exist in a state of pure conviction. The world bends to them or it shatters. "Don't be theatrical. 300 people are due in 4 hours. Everything is set. The gown is perfect." His eyes fell upon the dress bag. "You look good when you wear what I choose for you." There it was, the heart of his sickness. It wasn't praise for her beauty, but for her obedience. "This wedding is happening," Lucian went on, his voice shifting from silk to steel. "You will go down that aisle, look lovely for the photographers, and become my wife. That was our deal. It's what your father consented to when he took my money to save his company from ruin." Adriana's jaw tightened. "My father's debt doesn't make me your property, doesn't it?" Lucian's smile was a blade. "Your family owes me $17 million, Adriana. Your father's restaurants are open because I allow it. One word from me, and they are gone. Your mother's home, your sister's college, your brother's treatments." He stepped into her space, crowding her. "Do you think you have a choice in this? That you can just walk away?" She had heard versions of this threat many times, the reminder that her family's safety depended on his generosity. But this time, with Isabella's fragrance still hanging in the air, felt final. A deep calm washed over her. "So that is the arrangement," she murmured. "I am an asset. It's all just business." Lucian's hand came up, tucking a strand of her hair into place. The touch, meant to be gentle, felt like a shackle locking. "The sooner you accept this, the easier your life will be. I can give you everything, Adriana. Safety, status, a shield from the world. You just have to be smart enough to take it. In exchange, you will follow orders." His voice was plain, absolute, allowing no debate. "You will smile. You will be flawless. You will not ask about my business. You will bear my children when I decide it is time. And you will never embarrass me in public." His hand settled on her throat, not squeezing, just resting there. A physical warning. "Do we have an understanding?" Adriana studied him, the man she had agreed to wed 6 months before, when she thought she could handle the deal. When she told herself these marriages were normal, that she could make it work, that perhaps some affection could grow between them. What a fool she had been. "Yes," she said quietly. "I understand completely." A smug smile touched Lucian's lips. He kissed her forehead like a father praising a daughter for learning a difficult truth. "Good girl, now get ready." "And Adriana," he added, turning back to his glass, "wear the diamonds I gave you, not your mother's pearls." "The diamonds!" She left without another word, the garment bag feeling heavy in her hand. When she arrived, the bridal suite was a whirlwind of managed panic. Her mother, Lucia Varelli, paced while arguing in rapid Italian about flower arrangements. Her sister, Sophia, slouched on a couch, radiating the boredom of a typical 18-year-old. The stylist stood by the mirror, their instruments laid out like a surgeon's. Adriana. Her mother ended the call and rushed over, hands fluttering with worry. "Where were you? We are behind schedule. The stylist needs at least 2 hours." She stopped, her sharp eyes noticing something shift in Adriana's face. "So what happened?" "Nothing." Adriana hung the dress bag. "I'm here." "You're pale. Sophia, get your sister some water." Lucia took Adriana's chin, inspecting her for the slightest flaw. "Are you nervous? It's normal for a bride to have jitters." "I'm fine, Mama." "You don't look fine." "You look—" Lucia's voice dropped to a whisper. "Did you and Lucian argue?" Adriana thought of Lucian's hand at her neck, his total conviction that she would obey, that she had no other choice. "No," she said. "We didn't argue." Some of Lucia's tension melted away. "Good, good. This wedding, Adriana, you know how important it is, don't you, for our family?" "I understand. Your father's business." "I know, Mama. And Lucian is a good match. powerful, yes. And what he does is complicated. But he'll keep us safe. All of us. A frantic hope filled Lucia's eyes, begging for proof that she was right. That's worth something, isn't it? Adriana watched her mother, a woman raised for beauty, compliance, and careful silence, now presenting that life to her child, as if it were a gift. Yes, Mama, Adriana said. It's worth a lot. The lie tasted like ash. Sophia returned with the water, her eyes seeing far too much. Are you okay? She asked softly while their mother took another call. Perfect. You're lying, Sophia muttered. You're wearing the look you get when you're scheming. I have no idea what you mean. You do. It's the same one you had before you'd sneak out, right before you'd do something to make Papa furious. Sophia cocked her head. What are you planning, Audrey? To get married, just like everyone expects. Sophia watched her a second longer, then gave a slight shrug. Fine. But whatever you're really thinking, I hope you do it. Before Adriana could answer, a phone buzzed in her bag. She pulled it out and looked at the display. It was a text from Contractor, a label chosen to appear harmless to anyone else. Field notes. Subject Adriana displays trained situational awareness. All contact with outside asset Ethan is instantly wiped from her phone, a rehearsed procedure to leave no trace. Her pulse quickens, a standard physical reaction to covert, high-risk operations. The ritual begins. She watches herself vanish. Her reflection becomes a mask, an exquisite object hollowed out for the spectacle to come. A message from her cousin, Isabella, shatters the dissociative calm. Isabella's text traces a familiar, weary pattern of betrayal and hollow remorse. She sees the pathological selfishness, but chooses silence, conserving her strength for the real fight. She does not reply. The makeup artist notes the tension coiled in her muscles, suggesting she relax. A sardonic smile is her only compliance. Her mother fusses over trivialities, willfully blind to the crisis unfolding within her child. The room recedes as her mind rewinds 3 months, to the night she met Ethan Caldwell. She was playing her role then, a decorative consort on the arm of the monster Lucian in a gilded cage. He had broken the social contract by asking if she was all right. That simple act of kindness was an unexpected blow, creating a fracture in the armor she had built around herself. She tried to deliver her rehearsed lines, but he saw the performance. He mentioned his mother, who wore the same mask and had forged a connection. His words, "She got out," offered a blueprint for escape. Adriana knew his words were a covert offer of help. Their first communications were carefully innocuous, building a foundation of trust under a shield of plausible deniability. He then asked the devastating questions of safety and happiness. He just listened as she finally voiced her truth, a repeating chorus of no that became a turning point in her own mind. She knew she needed proof to bring down a man like Lucian. Her assessment of his possessive and retaliatory narcissism was clinically precise. Escape had to be a calculated, evidence-based strike. A covert team began to assemble a file. For 3 months, they unearthed financial crimes, intimidated witnesses, and acts of violence. The resulting dossier was her weapon and his undoing. The makeup is complete, and she feels a profound sense of alienation. The face in the mirror, a symbol of security, is a stranger. Her polite thanks are just another layer of the disguise. As her hair is styled, she feels less like a woman and more like a doll being prepped for display. Her mother's approving sigh, "Perfect," confirms the family's complicity in her dehumanization. The wedding gown, made under Lucian's obsessive eye, feels like a restraint. She recognizes his need for superficial perfection in its constrictive design, a metaphor for her trapped existence. In her reflection, she sees herself as a prize, an object to confirm Lucian's power. A text from Ethan brings a tremor to her hand, a jolt of anxiety she quickly hides in the dress's folds. Her father, Marco, arrives, bringing with him the crushing weight of family obligation. She can see the physical toll of the financial ruin that this very arrangement is supposed to fix. She hears the price tag behind his loving words. This is a transaction. Her life in exchange for $17 million in debt relief. She is the commodity being sold to save the family. She confronts him, asking when her consent was requested. He dismisses her fears as cold feet, his grip tightening on her arm in a subtle show of force meant to reestablish his control. Pulling away, she rejects his diagnosis and repeats the question. His face hardens as he invokes family duty, confirming her agency was never part of this coercive bargain. Adriana feigns surrender, ironically murmuring the family creed, family first. He misreads it as submission and praises Lucian's supposed kindness, the typical excuse of an enabler. Marco's justification reveals his own failures, a confession that selling his daughter ensures a better life. A better life, she thinks, as someone's property. The opulent room is their auction block. She observes the perfectly staged ceremony from a distance, a detached analyst. She calculates the minutes remaining, a mental exercise to hold back the overwhelming emotional tide. She imagines the vows and Lucian's possessive touch. Ethan's message demands a decision. Her finger trembles above the screen, holding the immense pressure of activating her escape plan. She sees Lucian with stark clarity. He feels no love, only the desire for an accessory. She knows if she escapes after marriage, he will not just pursue her, he will utterly destroy her family. Her risk analysis includes her own life. The public wedding, with its 300 witnesses and legal ties, is her one and only point of tactical leverage against his absolute control. In her final deliberation, she lists the facts: her family's betrayal, Lucian's threats, her parents' complicity, and a silent, knowing look from her sister Sophia. This is the evidence. She contrasts the girl who thought she could survive him with the woman who wants to live free. She makes a conscious choice for self-preservation, typing "yes," the signal that triggers everything. Ethan's reply is immediate. The operation is a go. She follows security protocol, deletes the message, and asks her mother for a moment alone to compose herself. The request is granted. With 60 seconds left, the door clicks shut, sealing Adriana inside. She sees Lucian at the altar next to a man tied to no fewer than 3 unprosecuted murders. Lucian is a perfect picture of civilization. He radiates power and total control. 300 guests are watched by his security, their tailored suits failing to hide their menace. A frontal escape is impossible. Her plan is far more explosive. Her phone vibrates. It is an unknown number. Agent Sarah Chen, FBI. Units are staged. On your signal, we advance. The name made it real. She had half expected to lose her nerve, to walk the aisle and obey, but gazing at the man who saw her as a possession, she feels only a pure, clarifying rage. A soft knock from Marco. It is time. She turns. I'm ready. She takes his arm and they walk toward the rising music. Cameras flash as guests turn with smiling faces. Her sister Sophia scatters petals, her backward glance unreadable. The white aisle appears, and at its end, Lucian watches her with a possessive, confident gaze. Adrenaline courses through Adriana. Her heart pounds as her hands go cold. Halfway down the aisle, she finds Ethan's eyes in the crowd. They meet for a second. His slight nod says she is not alone. She continues. 3 rows from the altar, the sound of screeching tires cuts the air. Guests look around in confusion. Lucian's security detail tenses, hands moving toward weapons. 2 rows. The cars stop. Doors fly open. Men in dark suits emerge. They are not Lucian's. Just one row from the altar, Adriana stopped dead. Confusion washed over Marco's face. Adriana. She slipped her arm from his, turning to see Ethan walking up the aisle toward her. A wave of murmurs swept the crowd. Lucian stepped forward, his face hardening. "What is this?" His question cut cleanly through the music. Adriana paid him no mind. Her eyes were locked on Ethan, the one person who had shown her true concern, who helped her and asked for nothing. He gave her back her freedom when all others had taken it. Ethan stopped beside her. "Are you certain?" he asked softly. Her mind replayed Lucian's abuse, his betrayals, and her family's silent approval. "I'm certain," she affirmed. She took Ethan's hand and walked, not to Lucian, but to the utterly baffled officiant. The room instantly erupted into chaos. Lucian lunged, but 2 FBI agents who had just arrived moved smoothly to block his path. "Adriana!" Lucian's voice was a raw, percussive shout. "What are you doing?" She met his gaze, her hand firmly in Ethan's. "I'm making a choice." "You don't have a choice." "Yes," she replied with perfect calm. "I do." The minister looked back and forth, completely lost. "I don't understand." "We need you to perform a wedding," Ethan announced, his voice clear for all to hear. "In between me and Adriana, right now." A stunned silence fell, only to be shattered by Lucian's harsh, rage-filled laughter. "You think you can marry another man at my wedding?" "It's not your wedding," Adriana corrected him. "It's mine, and I'm choosing him." Color flooded Lucian's face. "You're choosing a nobody over—" "Ethan Caldwell," Ethan supplied politely. "CEO of Caldwell Ventures. My net worth is roughly $2.3 billion. More importantly, I asked Adriana what she wanted." The entire scene exploded. Guests scrambled to their feet, phones held high to record the drama. Adriana's mother looked as though she might faint. Her father stood like a statue, slowly piecing it together. Sophia, however, was smiling. "This is madness," Marco breathed out. "Adriana, stop this now." "No, Papa. You'll destroy us all. The debt—" "Lucian will not do a thing," Ethan stated coolly, "because we have documented proof of 17 federal crimes he has committed, all packaged for law enforcement." He gestured to the agents nearby. "In fact, many guests here are FBI. Unless he wants to be arrested on the spot, I suggest he lets this happen." Lucian's jaw was clamped shut, his hands balled into tight fists. "You don't understand what you've just done." "Oh, I do," Adriana said. "I'm taking my life back." The minister, caught in the middle, glanced at the federal agents for guidance. One of them, Agent Chen, simply nodded. "Proceed," Chen instructed. "This is legal. They have a license." She produced a document that had been filed just this morning. Lucian's security was now contained and tactically outnumbered. The choice was clear: stand down or face federal arrest. They stood down. The minister, with trembling hands, opened his prayer book. "Do you, Ethan Caldwell, take Adriana Varley to be your lawfully wedded wife?" "I do," Ethan said, his eyes never leaving hers. "And do you, Adriana Varley, take Ethan Caldwell as your husband?" Adriana looked at Lucian, taking in the pure fury and disbelief on his face that she dared defy him. She then met Ethan's gaze, the man who offered support, not control. "I do," she said firmly. "Then, by the authority vested in me, I pronounce you husband and wife." Ethan's kiss was brief, a simple seal on the contract. As he pulled away, he whispered, "You are free." Not entirely, she thought, not quite yet, but she was on her way. The crowd was a wreck. About half the guests were leaving in a storm of scandal. The rest were frozen, watching the fallout. The scene was being recorded from every conceivable angle. Lucian stood abandoned at the altar, his face a mask of rage so perfect it was almost beautiful. "You will regret this," he said, his quiet threat amplified by the sudden silence. "Both of you, I will take you apart. I will destroy everything you hold dear." He waved off the federal presence. Agent Chen stepped up. "Mr. Moretti, you're under arrest for—" "Not today!" Lucian's smile was a knife's edge. "Your evidence isn't strong enough. Not yet. My lawyers are very good at making problems like this vanish." He stared at Adriana, including fiancés who forget their place. Adriana met his gaze without flinching. "I was never your property, Lucian." She turned, Ethan's hand secure in hers, and walked past the stunned guests, past her weeping mother and her father, who seemed to have aged 10 years in 10 minutes. As she went by, Sophia squeezed her hand, mouthing the word, "Good." They reached Ethan's waiting car, the driver another part of the plan. As they pulled away from the estate, Adriana glanced back. Lucian stood in the wreckage, surrounded by federal agents who could not yet touch him, his public humiliation witnessed by 300 people. She knew with chilling clarity that this was just the first battle in a much longer war. The car moved through Chicago, the driver weaving through traffic like a professional. Adriana sat in her wedding gown, watching the city lights blur. The adrenaline crash started, and her hands began to shake. "Breathe," Ethan coached gently. She tried to even out her breaths, her chest feeling tight. "I can't believe I actually did that." "You were magnificent." I publicly humiliated him. The cold reality of her actions began to sink in. "He's going to try to kill us." "He will try," Ethan agreed. Ethan was busy on his phone. "But we're several steps ahead of him. Chen's team is serving warrants on 4 of his properties. His assets are being frozen as we speak, and your family is now in protective custody." Adriana's head whipped around. "My family won't go along with that." "My father will try to cut a deal with Lucian." Sophia promised she would make sure they complied. She knew. A shadow of guilt crossed Ethan's face. "She figured out the plan 2 weeks ago and confronted me. She threatened to blow it all up unless we brought her in on it." Despite everything, Adriana almost laughed. That was her sister through and through. "What did you tell her?" "The truth. That you were escaping and we had to stop Lucian from using your family as leverage." He showed her a text from Sophia. "They're secure. Mom is losing it, but Dad is on his way to the safe house." Adriana closed her eyes. "My mother is going to hate me. For a while, maybe." Ethan's voice was clinical. "But she'll be alive to hate you." "That is the only thing that matters." The car slipped into an underground garage. Ethan's driver, a former Secret Service agent named Marcus, did a full security sweep before they got out. A private elevator whisked them to a penthouse where Agent Chen was waiting. Sarah Chen was younger than Adriana had pictured, maybe early 30s, with analytical eyes that seemed to catalog everything. She stood as they came in, holding a tablet. "Mrs. Caldwell," she said, and the new name struck Adriana like a physical blow. She was married, actually married, just not to the man everyone had expected. "That was quite a show." "It was not a show," Adriana said quietly. "I know. That's what made it so effective." Chen gestured to the couch. "Please sit. We need to go over the next phases of the operation." Adriana collapsed onto the leather, her gown spreading around her like spilled cream. Ethan sat near her, leaving a respectful distance. Chen pulled up files on her device. Lucian is already moving his pieces. We've intercepted calls to his legal team, his security, and what we believe are his enforcers. He's planning his counterattack. What kind of counterattack? All out. He's aiming for Ethan's corporate holdings first, trying to start a panic sell, calling in favors with investors, and spreading rumors of financial trouble. It's not subtle, but it could work if we don't counter it fast. Chen swiped to another screen. He's also squeezing your father, calling in the loan. The entire $17 million is due immediately. A cold sickness churned in Adriana's stomach. My father doesn't have that. We know that's the plan. Lucian wants to ruin your family, force them into a bankruptcy so deep you'll have to crawl back to him. That is not an option, Ethan said, his voice completely flat. He isn't aware of that yet. He thinks he still has all the power. Chen looked directly at Adriana. He assumes you'll choose your family's safety over your own, that you'll trade your freedom to save them. Her analysis was spot on. 3 hours earlier, Adriana would have done it. She had been trained her whole life to make that sacrifice. The mental burden of that role had been growing heavier for months. But everything changed when she saw him with Isabella, when his only reaction to being caught was annoyance, not shame, and when he told her she would simply obey him. Is my family secure? Adriana asked. They're in a safe house, Wisconsin, a remote place. Private security, completely off the grid. They'll stay there until we can detain Lucian. And what's the timeline on that? Chen's expression tightened. That's where it gets tricky. The evidence we have is solid, but Lucian's legal team is one of the best. They're already filing motions claiming harassment and illegal searches. Unopposed, they will entangle this in legal maneuvers for months, so our counter is to escalate. We find witnesses who will testify, follow the money trail deeper, and keep you solvent until this concludes. Chen stood. This brings us to the next step. You cannot stay in Chicago. Adriana heard the finality in the words. What? Lucian's network here is far too embedded. He has too many officials on his payroll, police, judges, politicians. We can guard you, but not inside his stronghold. A map lit up on Chen's tablet. There is a secure compound in Colorado, an isolated mountain property with a full security team. You will be housed there until the trial. The time frame? 6 months, possibly more. 6 months. Hidden away like a criminal? While Lucian walked free, plotting his revenge, Adriana's gaze fell on Ethan. You run a corporation. You can't just go off-grid for 6 months. My work is portable, he stated. Marcus and my executive team can run the daily operations. To be honest, the best move for my company is for me to disappear. My public presence would be a weapon for Lucian to use against us. Chen nodded. He's already launched a media attack, feeding the press a false story of an affair, playing the role of the jilted fiancé. By morning, every tabloid will paint you as the villain. Adriana had foreseen it, but the confirmation landed like a physical blow, so I am to hide while he shapes the entire narrative. You are to stay alive while we assemble a case that will imprison him for life. Chen corrected. I know this is not just, but justice is not the objective. Survival is. The agent left an hour later, promising daily contact. Marcus swept the rooms once more before posting himself outside the penthouse door. Adriana and Ethan were finally alone. The silence in the room was immense, heavy. Adriana rose, drifting toward the panoramic windows framing the city. Lights twinkled below. Thousands of ordinary lives unfolded as hers had just imploded. I have to take off this dress, she said quietly. There are clothes in the bedroom. I had my assistant pick up some things in your size. When her eyes sharpened on him, he added, just essentials. I made no presumptions. It's fine. Her attention returned to the window. You've thought of every detail. I tried to. Why? The word came out with more force than she intended. Why did you step in? You know almost nothing about me. Ethan paused, his reply deliberate when it came. When I was 12, my father sent my mother to the hospital. She had broken ribs, a fractured jaw, and internal bleeding. He told the police she fell down the stairs. She confirmed his story, terrified of what he would do otherwise. Adriana turned to look at him fully. She stayed with him another 8 years after that, Ethan continued. 8 years of treading carefully, of making herself smaller, of believing she had earned the abuse. By the time she finally left, I was in college. I came home for Christmas and didn't recognize her. She had lost so much weight. She flinched when I went to hug her. His jaw tightened. I asked her why she put up with it for so long. She said she saw no way out, that she thought nobody would help her. So you help women who are like her. I help people who need it when I have the power to do so. His eyes met hers. And when I saw you at that gala, I saw someone in profound distress, a person telling herself she was fine, but who was clearly breaking down. Adriana wanted to deny it, to defend herself, but she lacked the strength for the lie. I thought I could manage him. I believed, I'm not sure what I believed, that he might change once we were married, that I could somehow fix it. He would never have changed. Men like Lucian do not bend. I know that now. Do you? Ethan's voice was soft but firm. Because you will start to doubt your decision. It will happen soon. You'll start to ask if you were wrong, if you overreacted, if you should have just married him. No, I won't. Yes, you will, because that is what trauma does. It makes you distrust your own mind. He closed the distance between them, not crowding her, but bridging the space. So, I am telling you now, while you are clear, that you made the right choice. A marriage to him would have been a slow erasure of your soul, piece by piece, until you were gone. Adriana's throat tightened. You sound so certain. I watched it happen to my mother. I will not watch it happen again, not if I can prevent it. She knew she should say thank you, find the words for the risk he had taken. But the words felt too small, inadequate for the scale of his intervention. Instead, she said, we are legally married. On paper, yes. That was a change in plans. Ethan's face was unreadable. No. The original plan was a quiet courthouse wedding with only the necessary witnesses. But when your text came this morning, I knew Lucian would never allow a private ceremony. He would claim coercion and have it annulled. The only way to make it irreversible was to do it publicly with hundreds of witnesses at the event he hosted. He paused. I should have confirmed you were ready for that. I am sorry. Do not be sorry. Adriana's gaze dropped to her left hand. Ethan had put a ring there, simple white gold, elegant, not like the garish diamond from Lucian she had left on a nightstand. You gave me an escape. That is all that matters. This is a real marriage, Adriana. It is legally binding. If you want to end it, we will have to go through a divorce. I understand. And let me be perfectly clear, I have no other expectations. This is a protective arrangement only. You will have your own room, your own space. I will not. He seemed to search for the right word. I will not make things complicated. She watched him. This man who had just derailed his entire life for a stranger who had courted a monster's fury, risked his company, and married a woman he did not know to keep her safe. "Why have you never been married?" she asked suddenly. "You're wealthy, successful, and you seem to have a conscience. I would think you'd be taken." A small smile touched his lips, but not his eyes. "I was engaged once 5 years ago to Jennifer. We'd been together since university. What happened? She needed someone who was more present, who could put her before his career ambitions. I thought I could be that man, but my actions said otherwise, and she left." He gave a slight shrug that felt rehearsed, but Adriana saw the tension in his frame. It was for the best. "I'm not skilled at romantic relationships, and yet you married me. This is not the same thing, is it?" "Yes, because I am not asking for your affection." Ethan presented the terms clearly. Survival was the only condition. His voice was steady. After Lucian's conviction, he explained, their contract would be voided, leaving her free of any obligation. The offer, meant as a comfort, gave Adriana a strange sense of abandonment, a feeling she quickly pushed aside. "I'm going to get changed," she said. The bedroom was a sterile, large space of muted creams and grays. The clothes Ethan had arranged for simple, well-fitting basics were laid on the bed. His assistant's attention to detail was impressive. Adriana fought with her gown for a few minutes before giving in, calling his name through the door. "I need help with this zipper." He came in cautiously, his gaze directed away from her. His hands were quick and impersonal at her back, his touch entirely functional. As the dress loosened, Adriana took her first deep breath in hours. "Thank you. Of course." He moved back toward the door. "I'll be in the living room if you need me." After he shut it, Adriana faced her reflection. The physical evidence of sustained stress was stark. She was underweight, her ribs prominent, the circles beneath her eyes too dark for concealer to hide. She looked like a person slowly being worn down. Adriana put on the plain clothes, tied her hair back, and wiped away the makeup. Without the armor of the evening, she looked younger, more herself. When she returned to the living room, Ethan was typing intensely on his laptop. He glanced up. "Any update?" "Not yet," she said, taking the chair opposite him. "What's the plan for tomorrow?" "We're gone before the press mob arrives. Then we lie low in Colorado. We let the FBI handle it. We stay invisible." He closed the laptop. "That isn't the answer you want. I want this to end." "I know." Her phone buzzed on the nightstand. She had switched it on out of sheer habit, its screen now erupting in an avalanche of alerts. Messages from numbers she didn't know, voicemails from reporters, emails from colleagues. Some offered sympathy, most were laced with confusion. A single message from Isabella cut through the noise. "You have burned everything to the ground. I hope you're happy now." Adriana erased the text without replying. Another notification came from Sophia. "Mother is crying incessantly. Father is stunned, but they have us secure. Agent Chen's people are good. Are you safe?" Adriana tapped out her answer. "I'm fine. Tell Mother I am sorry." Sophia's reply was instant. "Don't be sorry. You did what you had to. I am so proud of you." Those 4 words, "I am so proud of you," struck Adriana with an unexpected force. She put the phone down, fighting the welling of tears. "Your sister?" Ethan asked. "Yes, she says my mother can't stop crying." "Give her a moment. Parents need time to process things." "My father made a bargain with Lucian, trading me to save his company. I just broke the contract." Adriana's tone was hollow, stripped of all feeling. He'll never forgive me for this. Then the man is a fool. He's a desperate man. It's not the same. No, Ethan countered sharply. It's not. Desperate men still make choices. Your father decided to use you as a bargaining chip. He could have filed for bankruptcy, asked for help, or 1,000 other things that didn't involve selling his child to a mob boss. Stop making excuses for him. Adriana felt the instinct to argue rising in her throat. But the truth was, she had been making excuses for her father for months, crafting a story of necessity to hide the transactional reality. It was all an intricate lie. I'm just so tired, she whispered. You should get some sleep. We have a long drive ahead of us. She got to her feet, then hesitated. Ethan, thank you. For all of this. I know I haven't said it properly. There's no need for thanks. Yes, there is. She looked him directly in the eye. You've risked your company, your reputation, your life. For that, I am grateful. He gave a short nod, clearly uncomfortable with the overt gratitude. Just stay alive. That's all the thanks I need. Adriana went into the bedroom, but sleep wouldn't come. She lay in the dark, listening to the city hum, replaying the dizzying turn of events. Just 24 hours ago, she was getting ready to marry Lucian. Now she was wed to another man, a fugitive on the run and a witness in waiting. Her phone vibrated again, a blocked number. She paused, but some dark impulse made her answer. Adriana. Lucian's voice was slick, unnervingly calm. We need to talk. A hammer pounded in her chest. How did you get this number? I get everything I want. You, of all people, should know that. He let the silence hang in the air. You made quite a scene today. You were sleeping with my cousin on our wedding day. Isabella is nothing. I have explained this to you. And I'm just supposed to accept that? You are supposed to understand how this world operates. His voice grew hard. Men like me take whatever we please. That's the truth you were raised to accept. I don't accept it anymore. Lucian let out a cold, sharp laugh. You think marrying some billionaire hero changes the rules? That the FBI can actually protect you? Adriana, you are mine. You will always be mine. When you finally realize that, and you will, I might consider taking you back if you beg properly. I am not begging. I am not coming back, and I will spend my life making sure you rot in a cell. Such brave words. Let's see how long they last. His tone changed, becoming eerily casual. Your father called me. He's quite worried about his debt. I told him not to worry about it. I'd be willing to forget the entire sum if you just came home. I'm not coming home. Then I will ruin him, his company, his reputation, everything. Your family will have nothing. Your mother on the street, your sister pulled from school, all because you decided to be selfish. Adriana's hands started to tremble. You're threatening my family. I'm explaining consequences. Every action has a reaction, Adriana. She bluffed that the FBI was on the line, but he brushed it aside. No, they are not. I'm not that sloppy, and even if they were, what does it prove? I am a concerned man trying to reason with his runaway bride. There's nothing illegal about that. Ex-fiancé, I married someone else. A meaningless wedding. You don't love Ethan Caldwell, and he doesn't love you. It is a business arrangement, just like ours was. Except my arrangement had better terms. Better terms? You mean the part where I became your property? I mean the part where you were protected and your family thrived. His voice dropped into a predatory whisper. I would have been good to you, Adriana. I would have given you a perfect life. All you had to do was be obedient. I don't want a perfect life if it costs me my soul. Then you're a bigger fool than I thought. The false warmth vanished. You have 1 week. Come back, apologize, and we can forget this ever happened. I'll even forgive the public embarrassment. After 1 week, this deal is off the table. After that, my new purpose in life will be to burn down everything you love. The line went dead. Adriana sat trembling in the dark, the phone still pressed to her ear. 7 days to choose between her own life and her family's destruction. She got out of bed, finding Ethan in the main room poring over a thick legal folder. Lucian called, she said, her voice hollow. Ethan's head shot up. What? She relayed the conversation from start to finish. The threats, the choice, the 1 week deadline. Before she even finished, Ethan was dialing Agent Chen. The family needs to be moved, he said without introduction. Tonight, right now, Lucian has made direct threats against them. After a clipped conversation, he hung up and turned to Adriana. Chen's people are moving your family as we speak. Lucian won't be able to touch them. He found my new phone number. That's different. A phone number is a commodity. A federal safe house is a fortress. He dragged a hand through his hair. This was always going to happen. Of course he would use them as pawns. He gave me a week to go back to him. You're not going anywhere, Ethan said, his tone leaving no room for argument. Your family will be kept out of harm's way. I promise you, Adriana, they are going to be safe. His voice was raw with intensity. Lucian is not going to win this with terror tactics. Adriana found it hard to believe his confidence. She had seen Lucian's power, how he owned entire districts, how the police looked the other way. His influence was part of the city's fabric. What if the Bureau's protection isn't enough? She asked in a small voice. What if he still finds a way to get to them? Then we find a way to take him down first. Ethan opened his laptop to show her a series of files. Chen gave me access to their entire case file. Financials, witness reports. Here, let me show you what they have. For the next hour, he laid out the entire case. Lucian's empire was immense. They had proof of money laundering, racketeering, and loan sharking, plus strong connections to 3 unsolved murders. The case was solid, but it had holes. It needed witnesses who would testify and an ironclad paper trail to connect the dots. How long have you been working on this? Adriana asked. I started making some calls the day after we first met. After I understood the kind of man Lucian was, I simply couldn't let it go. Most people would have. But most people didn't watch their mother get beaten for 8 years. His voice was utterly detached. I told you I help where I can, and this was one of those times. Adriana looked at all the information on the screen. Is this going to be enough? It's not clear, but we are going to make it enough. Her phone buzzed again on the table. Another blocked number. She stared at it, letting it ring. A reporter, probably, Ethan guessed. The story's out there now. Mob boss left at the altar. You're about to be very famous. I don't want any fame. Then stay away from the press. He closed the laptop. Try and get some sleep. We have to be on the road by 5. But sleep was impossible. Adriana lay staring at the shadows on the ceiling, Lucian's voice echoing in her head. The absolute conviction he had, the certainty that she would crawl back to him. She saw her father pacing the floors of a safe house, cursing her name. She saw her mother weeping, praying for a miracle. She saw Sophia, the only one who truly understood, and she thought of Isabella, her own cousin, who had wanted Adriana's fiancé so badly. She had thrown away family and friendship for what? A meaningless tryst with a predator who cared nothing for her. Adriana's phone screen lit up with one last message. It came from an anonymous email address. You looked beautiful today. A pity you wasted it on the wrong man. I'll be seeing you soon. L. Ice flooded her veins. Lucian was watching her. Somehow, somewhere, he had eyes on her. She stood and found Ethan asleep on the couch, laptop still open beside him. She shook his shoulder gently. Lucian sent another message, she said, as soon as his eyes fluttered open. He's watching us. Ethan read the email, his face hardening into granite. Marcus, he called out. His head of security appeared almost instantly. Sir, we are on full lockdown. No one comes in, no one goes out. And I want a top-to-bottom sweep of this place. Bugs, cameras, any kind of electronic device. Ethan turned on her, his voice sharp. Get your things. We're leaving tonight. But you promised. The plan is shattered. If Lucian has our location, we can't remain. He was already a flurry of motion, yanking luggage from a closet, forcing clothes inside. We'll drive through the night, reach Colorado before he can mount a pursuit. And my family? Chen is already moving them. They will be protected. He paused, his stare boring into her. Trust me. Adriana gave a stiff nod. What other choice remained? They were gone in under 30 minutes. Marcus drove while Ethan monitored encrypted feeds on his phone from the passenger seat. From the back, Adriana watched Chicago bleed into the horizon. The city's lights flickered out one by one as the interstate consumed them. Before them lay a void of darkness, mountains, and profound isolation. This was either safety or just a different kind of cage. Adriana looked at her phone, reading Lucian's words one last time. I will see you shortly. Not if she could stop it. Never again. She wiped the message from existence and powered off the device. Then she closed her eyes, trying to imagine the shape of freedom, if it was something she would ever know again. The Colorado safe house was at the end of a dirt track that wound through a pine forest for 3 miles. As they arrived, dawn fractured over the mountains, painting the sky in strokes of gold and rose that might have been breathtaking had Adriana possessed the will to see them. She got out of the car, her body rigid after 12 hours of travel, and surveyed her indefinite prison. The building itself was more sophisticated than she imagined. A sprawling modern cabin with a rustic veneer, its floor-to-ceiling windows staring out at a desolate valley. It had solar panels and a security perimeter disguised as a quaint split-rail fence. As Marcos started a perimeter check, Ethan guided her inside, his hand a firm anchor on her arm when she faltered. When was the last time you slept? He asked. I have no idea. Bedroom is upstairs, first door on your right. He gestured toward the staircase. I'll wake you for dinner. She did not resist. The room was Spartan. Walls of raw log, a quilt that looked hand-stitched, and drapes that smothered most of the morning sun. Adriana kicked off her shoes and fell onto the bed, fully clothed. Oblivion claimed her instantly. When she awoke, the world outside was black. The clock beside her read 8:15. She had been asleep for almost 12 hours. A stale taste of old coffee and bad choices coated her tongue. Downstairs, Ethan sat at the kitchen table, lost in a sea of laptops and papers. He glanced up as she appeared. There is food in the refrigerator. Get it yourself. Adriana found pasta from the night before, eating it cold, too famished to care. Any news? Your family is secure at the new location. Chen says they are being cooperative for the most part. Your father is still agitated, but not acting irrationally. Ethan pushed a laptop toward her. And Lucian has made a move. A news report filled the screen. Billionaire CEO faces accusations of corporate espionage. Beneath it, a second headline. Caldwell Ventures shares fall 15% amid the controversy. He's attacking your company, Adriana whispered. It's an attempt. Fake stories, paid journalists, a few bribed board members to cause chaos. Ethan's voice was level, but she could see the tension coiled in his shoulders. The strategy is clumsy, but it works. My silence lends the rumors weight. A denial makes me look defensive. So, what are you going to do? Nothing. We let him play his hand. The more aggressive his actions, the more desperate he seems. And desperation leads to mistakes. He opened another file. Chen's team raided 2 of his warehouses yesterday, finding enough smuggled evidence to bring federal charges. Lucian's legal department is reeling, but he is still at large. For the moment, the wheels of justice turn slowly, especially when you have enough cash to jam them. Ethan snapped the laptop shut. How are you holding up? I've been unconscious for 12 hours. A fair point. He rose and walked to the coffee machine. Marcus found a tracking device in the vehicle. Its placement time is unknown, but it has been broadcasting for at least 48 hours. Adriana felt her stomach plummet. So, Lucian heard everything we said. It is probable, which means he knows we are in Colorado, though not our precise location. Chen is sweeping the area to ensure he has no operatives nearby. He filled 2 mugs with coffee, passing one to her. We need to be more vigilant going forward. More vigilant than hiding in the mountains? More vigilant about what we say, even in private. We must work as if we are always being watched until proven otherwise. The very thought felt like a violation. Lucian's shadow stretched even here, hundreds of miles from Chicago, into this fortress. She sipped her coffee, trying to banish thoughts of his other surveillance methods. Her phone, the new secure device from Ethan, vibrated on the counter. A text from Sophia. Mom has stopped crying. Dad is talking with lawyers about the financial impact. How are you coping? Adriana texted back. Alive. Exhausted. Tell Mom I am safe. Sophia's response was immediate. She is not willing to hear from you right now. Sorry. The message shouldn't have stung, but it did. Adriana set the phone down and focused on her coffee. Give her time, Ethan commented, reading her face. Parents who treat their children like assets forfeit their right to outrage when the asset refuses to be sold. That's a brutal assessment. It's an accurate one. He leaned on the counter. My mother was silent with me for 6 months after she escaped my father. She was ashamed I had seen her in that state, ashamed for how long she endured it. It took her ages to realize I held no judgment against her. Do you speak now? Every Sunday, she lives in Seattle and runs a shelter for women, helping others escape similar situations. The ghost of a smile touched his lips. She is thriving in a way she never could with my father. And your father? Deceased. A heart attack 5 years ago. I did not go to the memorial. His voice was flat, devoid of all emotion. A statement of fact. Some relationships are beyond repair. Adriana pictured her own father, the look of profound disappointment in his eyes when she had announced her deal to marry Lucian. He had been relieved, not happy. Relieved his problem was solved, his business rescued, his failures erased by her sacrifice. "I don't think my father will ever forgive me," she murmured. "Then he is the one who bears the greater loss, not you." Before she could reply, Marcus appeared in the doorway. "We have inbound vehicles, 2 of them on the access road." Ethan was on his feet instantly. "The FBI?" "Unlikely wrong type of vehicles. They aren't following protocol." Marcus already had his weapon in hand. "Get her to the panic room." "I will not hide," Adriana declared. "Yes, you will." Ethan grabbed her arm, pulling her toward the cabin's rear. This is not up for debate. The secure room was concealed behind a bookcase in a small study. Ethan tripped a switch and the shelf swung inward, exposing a small reinforced chamber with supplies, a communications line, and a monitor displaying the security feeds. Ethan's command was final. "Stay here until I come for you." He rattled off a contingency plan for the sound of gunfire or a breach, telling her to call Chen on a preset device. Her protest died on her lips as his intense gaze met hers with a silent order to obey. He sealed the door before she could argue, and Adriana heard the heavy grate of the bookshelf sliding shut, entombing her. The space was a small cell, perhaps 8 by 10 feet, humming with the sound of a ventilation fan. Adriana sat, her attention glued to the security monitor. 2 dark SUVs idled at the gate, from which 4 men in tactical gear emerged. Their fluid professional movements were a clear tell. These were not feds. They were Lucian's private soldiers. She watched on the screen as Marcus braced the main door for an assault. Ethan was on his phone, no doubt updating Chen. The figures at the gate held their position, a silent, menacing posture. One of them raised a phone to his ear. A moment later, Adriana's own device rang with an unknown number. She answered. A gravelly voice she didn't recognize, not Lucian's, spoke. He twisted reality, saying he was there to take her home. Her response was cold. "I am home." The man offered a pardon from Mr. Moretti for her escape. A forgiveness she knew was only a consequence of her successful defiance. The man then switched to threats, offering a simple choice between surrender and violence. Adriana played her only card, citing her protected status. His mocking laughter crackled over the line, a chilling sound that underscored how far they had already infiltrated her sanctuary, and how much time they had to wait. The target would have to emerge, and they would be waiting when he did. The line went dead. On her monitors, Adriana watched the threat hold its ground. The men fanned out, locking down every possible exit. The house was now under siege. Her device lit up again. It was a call from Ethan. He needed a situation report. She relayed the intercepted message. They planned to drag her back to Lucian. Ethan's reply was cold iron. That was not an option. Chen's support team was 40 minutes out. Their mission was to hold. If they were overrun, he and Marcus would be the last line of defense. He ordered her to stay locked in the safe room and ignore every sound she heard. He gave his word. Adriana's eyes stayed glued to the screens as the stalemate wore on. The attackers waited like wolves. One of them finally raised a radio to his mouth. He muttered into it, then gestured at the house. A heartbeat later, the power failed and the screens died. Crimson emergency lights flooded the room in a bloody wash. A jolt of terror seized Adriana. They knew the schematics. This was a professional hit. She heard the heavy thud of multiple boots on the floor directly above her. The perimeter had been breached. The secure room's direct line to Chen rang. Adriana answered, her voice tight. "They're inside the house." Chen's reply was immediate. "I know." Satellite feeds confirmed it. An FBI unit was now 20 minutes away. The order was to hold fast and not engage. When she asked about Ethan and Marcus, Chen simply said they were following their own protocols. A primal urge to run screamed inside Adriana. The sounds of a fight, shouts, heavy blows, what sounded like a gunshot, fed her rising panic. She felt like property being reclaimed. A single monitor flickered back to life on battery, showing the main living area. Two of Lucian's men were there, weapons raised, sweeping the room. One spoke into his radio that the target was not in sight. The clinical term chilled her. Footsteps were getting closer. They stopped right outside the study that hid the safe room's entrance. Adriana held her breath, watching on screen as one operative stepped into the study. He moved straight for the bookshelf, his search too precise. He knew about the hidden door and began working the latch. When the lock didn't give, he reported his find and readied to force it. He fired twice into the mechanism. Wood splintered but held firm. Adriana's hands trembled as she searched for a weapon, finding nothing that could stop a man with a gun. He slammed his body against the bookshelf. He was now ramming the door with his full weight. Over the screech of tortured metal, she heard Marcus's voice snap a command to stop. On the monitor, the hostile swung his weapon toward Marcus, but he was too slow. 2 shots to the chest put him down. "Room clear," Marcus reported. 1 hostile neutralized, sweeping now. But 3 more were still inside the building, and Ethan was gone from her screens. A crash from upstairs, the shatter of glass, and 3 quick gunshots echoed through the house. Then, an unnerving silence. Adriana pressed her ear to the door. She could hear nothing but the frantic thunder of her own heart. 5 minutes passed, then 10, time stretching grotesquely under the red emergency lights. The bookshelf started to grind open from the other side. Adriana grabbed a fire extinguisher, ready to swing. The door revealed a figure. It was Ethan, marked by the fight, his shirt stained with blood, a fresh gash over his eye. He confirmed the area was secure. When she pointed to his injuries, he waved it off. He led her out of the room just as Chen's tactical team stormed in to take control. The house was a war zone. Adriana picked her way through the wreckage, averting her eyes from the bodies being carried out by federal agents. Agent Chen met her, her professional mask softening as she verified Adriana was unharmed. Adriana's flat response, "Define unharmed," hinted at the deeper wounds. Chen nodded, outlining their plan for the captured men. They were facing a mountain of federal charges, and the hope was one would flip, giving them evidence against Lucian. It was a simple equation. Was their fear of prison greater than their fear of Lucian? Chen's radio crackled. She listened, then announced they were moving Adriana immediately. The site was compromised. Within the hour, they would be at a more remote, hardened location. A wave of despair washed over Adriana. This wasn't safety. It was just the next stop in a life spent running from Lucian and his limitless resources. "There must be another option," she argued, her voice rising with desperation. "I can't live like this." She demanded to know how long she was expected to hide. The agent's answer was chillingly simple, until they could build an ironclad case against him. When she asked how long that would take, Chen's silence was the only answer she needed. It was indefinite. Ethan put a grounding hand on her arm, but it was the sight of the body bags being loaded outside that truly convinced her. She agreed to leave. The bug out was swift. Marcus loaded their few bags into an unmarked car. Just as they were about to pull away, Adriana's phone vibrated. She knew the number. On pure instinct, she answered it. "Lucian," she said, her voice flat. He began by twisting the narrative, claiming his men were under orders not to hurt her, making their deaths her fault. It was a textbook move from a master manipulator. He pressed his advantage, speaking of the families his men had left behind because of her. "You're the one who sent them," she shot back. He confirmed he would end this, promising that her freedom was temporary and that he'd be there when she finally made a mistake. "You'll be waiting a very long time," she retorted. A pause. Then he changed tactics, asking about the cut above Ethan's eye he had apparently witnessed during the fight. The message was clear, a threat against the man now protecting her. "You're watching us," she breathed, the realization dawning. "I am always watching," he confirmed, revealing a surveillance web far deeper than they imagined. He told her every move was seen, every word was heard, trapping her in a prison of the mind. He hung up. "We have to go now," Ethan said urgently. As the car sped away, Adriana sank into a state of utter hopelessness. This wasn't an escape. She was merely being moved from one cage to another, where the bars were no longer steel, but pure psychological dread. The next safe house was deep in the mountains, a fortress accessible only by a winding, treacherous road. It was smaller, more like a concrete bunker. "Only Chen's core team knows this place exists," Marcus offered, trying to assure her of its security. The new hideout was a ghost, leaving no trace on any map or record. Adriana said nothing. Her reserves of hope felt completely drained. Inside, Ethan immediately began sweeping for bugs, finding 3. While Adriana watched, detached, Marcus systematically crushed each device. Ethan's diagnosis was grim. The bugs were planted ahead of time, meaning Chen had a leak in her network. Marcus suggested it could be outside contractors or even cleaning crews. Adriana buried her face in her hands, asking when this would ever end. Ethan's quiet promise, "It will," felt thin against her despair. A change in strategy was needed. "What strategy?" Adriana asked bitterly. "We hide, he hunts." That was the game. Ethan stated it was time to stop playing by Lucian's rules. Scrolling through files on a tablet, he pointed out they had only ever reacted. But they had leverage of their own, proof and witnesses. The new plan was to go on the offensive, release everything they had to the public. The goal was to ignite a media firestorm so massive that not even a megalomaniac like Lucian could contain it. Agent Chen, who had arrived at the safe house, shot the idea down. "A terrible plan," she declared. Chen warned that Lucian's legal team would paint it as a character assassination. Ethan argued that the court of public opinion was the only one that mattered now. He believed that total exposure would sever Lucian's political and financial lifelines, leaving him exposed and alone. Isolating him, Chen countered, would make him more erratic, like a cornered beast. Adriana spoke up, her voice quiet but firm, saying they were already facing a cornered beast. "At least this way," she said, "we're finally fighting back." It was a profound shift from victim to combatant. Chen looked at her, asking if she was sure. She wasn't. Her mind was a storm of doubt, but her spirit was resolved, exhausted from being Lucian's prey. She affirmed her decision with a confident lie. Chen relented, but on her own terms. They would use a trusted journalist and coordinate the entire leak with the U.S. Attorney's Office. This could not be seen as vigilante justice. Ethan had found their weapon, a journalist whose career was built on dismantling Chicago's crime syndicates. An exclusive story would be an irresistible lure, ensuring its publication. Chen sanctioned the meeting with austere conditions. No electronics, only a face-to-face exchange. The rendezvous was set for 3 days later at a neutral location, a diner 2 hours from the city. The journalist Rebecca Torres showed her experience by arriving early, claiming a booth cloaked in shadow. Adriana's first glance took in the woman's apparent youth, perhaps late 30s, and her intensely perceptive eyes. When they arrived, Rebecca's face was an unreadable mask. Her first words were a deliberate test. "So, you're the runaway bride." Adriana simply acknowledged the media's label for her. Rebecca then recited other tabloid headlines, starkly illustrating the gulf between public fiction and her reality. "I need the truth," she declared, her tone unwavering. Adriana then recounted the entire harrowing timeline of her ordeal, from the forced engagement to her endless flight from Lucian's grasp. Rebecca listened, her interruptions minimal, her method a study in professional information gathering. When Adriana's account was finished, Rebecca conceded its emotional weight but drew a line between personal truth and hard evidence. She then turned her gaze to Ethan, inquiring about the proof he had promised. He presented a flash drive holding financial records and statements detailing 5 years of criminal operations. Rebecca took the drive but didn't plug it in, voicing her own calculus of the risk from a man like Lucian Moretti. She needed to know the data was solid. At that moment, Agent Chen stepped from a hidden alcove, her presence revealing that she had been overseeing their security. "It is," she confirmed. The Federal Bureau of Investigation had already vetted the drive's contents, verifying their authenticity. A flicker of surprise crossed Rebecca's face at the Bureau's direct role. Chen explained that the courts were too slow to stop the immediate threat against Adriana's life. This was a media play to force a move or speed up the endgame. Adriana voiced her consent to the gamble. Rebecca pushed deeper, asking what drove her to face the storm instead of seeking shelter. "Because that isn't living," Adriana answered, framing the choice as an act of reclaiming her soul. Her reasoning seemed to be what Rebecca needed to hear. She agreed to move forward. The journalist's sole condition was that Adriana use her real name to give the story its greatest possible force. Adriana felt a visceral, cold shock, knowing this meant the absolute destruction of her anonymity, painting a perfect target on herself for Lucian. But it was also the one chance she had to shape her own history, free from anyone else's spin. "I agree," she said. The interview that followed stretched for 3 hours, with Rebecca asking sharp, incisive questions about Adriana's past with Lucian and her psychological breaking points. Adriana's voice never broke as she answered, a testament to her profound control under fire. Afterward, Rebecca stated the story would run in 48 hours, adding that the choice was now final. When she asked if Adriana was ready, she admitted, "No, but it doesn't matter." A faint smile touched Rebecca's lips as she noted that the best stories are about terrified people acting on conviction. After she left, a deep weariness settled over Adriana while Ethan and Chen handled the next steps. Ethan's quiet voice broke the silence. "You were incredible. It feels like I just lit a beacon for him to find me," she whispered. Ethan conceded the risk but reframed it as an offensive move, stripping Lucian of his most powerful weapon, her silence and his narrative dominance. He placed his hand on hers, a grounding touch of support. The reassurance was hard for her to hold on to, her mind echoing with Lucian's threats. The 48-hour wait became a crucible of acute anxiety, robbing her of sleep and appetite. When the article finally dropped, its shockwave across the digital world was instantaneous and immense. Rebecca's piece, titled "The Woman Who Said No," was a meticulously researched and devastating account, bolstered by irrefutable proof. It consumed every social media platform within hours, forcing major news networks to bring on legal analysts to dissect the fallout. The public revelation caused a catastrophic implosion of Lucian's network, Political allies publicly condemned him, while business partners severed all connections. His financial empire, built on a foundation of legitimate businesses hiding criminal activity, started to fracture under the intense public glare. Lucian, however, did not break. His counterattack came within 24 hours. Digital assaults against Ethan's company, menacing calls to Adriana's family, and a targeted leak of their safe house's address. Chen's updated profile concluded Lucian was now acting without restraint. He was issuing public threats, a clear signal of extreme emotional decay. Adriana asked if he was cornered or plotting his next strike, and Chen confirmed he was likely both. That night, sleep offered Adriana no escape, as she obsessed over their odds of ever truly getting away. Ethan found her staring into the blackness of the room. She described textbook symptoms of post-traumatic stress, haunted by visions and the echo of her tormentor's voice. She asked if they would ever stop running. Ethan's answer, "Then we run together," cemented their shared ordeal into a permanent bond. The promise that she was not alone settled over Adriana. Her gaze fell on him, seeing the man who had shouldered impossible risks, entered a marriage of protection, and faced constant peril for her. His loyalty, when he could have walked away so many times, was the anchor of her sanity. "Why?" she asked him softly. "Why are you still doing this?" After a long silence, Ethan spoke of a duty he once felt toward his mother. He paused, then corrected himself, his voice raw. "Because you deserved more than what Lucian wanted to turn you into." Her reply, "I don't think I deserve you," revealed her shattered self-worth, but he dismissed it, saying help isn't earned. "You just have to let me," he said, turning to face her fully. "I think you're braver than you give yourself credit for." He reframed her escape not as flight, but as an act of immense courage, leaving a gilded cage for an unknown wilderness, a choice he said few would make. She felt the burn of tears she refused to shed. Adriana confessed she felt only terror, not bravery. In her mind, she redefined courage as simply acting while terrified, a common revelation for trauma survivors. The dark, silent woods outside seemed a perfect mirror for her internal fear of Lucian. Only Ethan's closeness offered a brief respite from the ceaseless anxiety. That fragile sense of security was shattered without warning. A message arrived at 3 a.m, 2 weeks after Rebecca's article had been released. Adriana was caught in the gray haze before sleep when her phone lit up with Chen's name. The message was blunt, signaling a new crisis. One of Lucian's men had turned informant. The man was trading his testimony for federal protection. Adriana's heart surged with a moment of hope, but Chen's voice, tight with tension, clarified the situation. Lucian had put out a contract, but the target was Ethan, not her. The aim was pathologically cruel, to systematically destroy her entire world. The informant had been specific. The hit would happen within 48 hours. Ethan, who was already awake, listened to the speakerphone, his face a grim mask. He asked for the assassin's name, but their source didn't have it, confirming only that a professional was now in play. Chen then advised that they separate immediately. Her logic was that 2 moving targets were harder to eliminate than 1. Ethan refused without hesitation, declaring they would not be split up. He saw it as a tactical mistake and a psychological win for Lucian, a way to isolate them before destroying them. His hand found Adriana's, reinforcing his vow. Chen conceded, ordering a complete lockdown and heightened security. After the call ended, they sat together in the profound silence. The threat was no longer a vague shadow. It now had a 48-hour deadline. Adriana gave voice to her despair, speaking of the certainty that Lucian would keep coming relentlessly until he finally succeeded. Ethan pushed back against her fatalism, suggesting they go on the offensive. Adriana's hope was gone, replaced by bitterness over how Lucian had always twisted the legal system to his will. With a rising sense of agitation, she insisted the entire system was infected by his influence. Ethan then proposed they work outside of it. Getting to his feet, Ethan pointed to the informant's testimony as their last piece of leverage. Adriana countered that Lucian would simply have the man killed before he could ever testify. Ethan's new plan was to release the testimony to the world first, making the informant's murder strategically irrelevant. Their strategy now evolved from exposing Lucian's crimes to exposing his methods, the very architecture of his corruption. The first article wasn't enough. Lucian's lawyers had spun it as a smear campaign, masterfully exploiting every sliver of doubt. "There's no spinning this," Ethan declared, his voice low and certain. He laid out the strategy: a live broadcast, an unredacted data dump, and the informant's raw testimony, a digital blitzkrieg designed to shatter any legal defense. But Adriana felt a cold knot of dread. Lucian didn't play by any rules she knew. "If we go down," Ethan had countered, "we go down fighting, not cowering." The fire in his words sparked a familiar resolve in Adriana, reminding her of his strength in another storm. He was her anchor in this chaos, a terrifying and beautiful constant. Adriana nodded, sealing their fate. The next 24 hours became a whirlwind of calculated moves. Chen forced a reluctant green light from the U.S. Attorney's office, aligning the press event with fresh warrants, while Rebecca locked down the media and secured the location. Their key, Vincent Delgado, Lucian's financial architect for decades, was spirited away to a safe house. When Adriana met him, she saw a man in his 50s, gray and hollowed out, wearing the ghost of a conscience he'd long since betrayed. She had to ask why, after all this time. His gaze fixed on the floor, Vincent confessed Lucian had finally given an order that shattered his own twisted code. He could launder money, but orchestrating the murder of her husband was a sin he refused to carry. "That was the line," he said flatly. Murder, he reasoned, wasn't a logical answer to a bruised ego. He confessed his role in concealing 3 other deaths, dismissing them as cold business. This, however, was different. This was pure, wounded pride. Then his eyes, dark and empty, met hers. He spoke of Lucian's obsession, a sickness rooted in public shame and a twisted need for respect. A chill crawled up Adriana's spine as he described Lucian's vow to not just own her, but to utterly destroy her joy. Vincent's tone was clinical, detached, as he warned that Lucian was gathering his forces for a terrible, unknown counterstrike. Ethan cut in, insisting their plan for tomorrow was the kill shot, with Vincent as the bullet. The informant gave a slow, weary nod. "I'll do it," he confirmed, but cautioned that Lucian's roots in law enforcement ran deep. The backlash would be instant. A new fire ignited in Adriana. "Let him try," she said, her fear finally burning away. The stage was set. A Chicago hotel, 2 p.m. Chen had argued for a remote broadcast, a ghost as a machine, but Ethan demanded a physical stage to project strength. They arrived 2 hours early, a phalanx of federal agents and private guards surrounding them. The hotel had been swept clean, every entrance watched. Every face was screened, yet Adriana felt naked, a primal certainty that Lucian's eyes were on her from somewhere. The room swarmed with press. Rebecca held her ground in the front row. As the clock struck 2, Adriana walked to the podium, Ethan at her side, Vincent a shadow behind them. The prepared words felt like lies. She tossed them aside. "My name is Adriana Varley Caldwell," she said, her voice a solid bell even as her hands trembled. 3 weeks ago, I fled my own wedding to Lucian Moretti because I finally saw the cage he was building for me. It meant surrendering my will, my voice, my soul. The room held its breath, utterly silent. Lucian Moretti is a predator who built a kingdom on terror, and I have the receipts. She motioned to the screens, which erupted with a flood of damning financial data. For the last 6 months, we have documented 17 distinct federal offenses. What you see is irrefutable. As a clamor rose from suppressed, she spoke over it. He threatened my family. He dispatched his men to take me by force. He has put marks on the backs of those who stood by me, buying his immunity with cash and influence. She let the silence hang in the air. That immunity ends now. Today, a man from his inner circle will speak to the sins he cannot bury. Vincent moved into the light, his voice shaking but resonant as he unspooled years of rot. He painted a map of Cayman Islands' bank accounts, phantom companies, payoffs, and intimidation. Then the secret recordings he'd kept as life insurance played from the world to hear. His account was surgically precise and absolutely damning. Halfway through, a vibration against Adriana's hip, an anonymous text. You just signed your death warrant. All of you. Signed, Lucian? She showed Ethan. Security sealed the exits, but the walls had already been breached. He was watching them. The ghost was real. When Vincent finished, the floor was open to questions. Rebecca aimed one straight at the heart. Are you afraid he'll come for you? Adriana met her gaze. Of course I'm afraid, but I'm more terrified of what happens if I say nothing. When we let men like Lucian operate without consequence, we teach the world that power makes you a god. She looked straight into a camera lens. I am not untouchable, and neither is he. I'm betting that once the light hits him, all the vermin will scatter. An hour later, it was over. As they were being moved, Agent Chen delivered the news. Warrants were live. Feds and locals were closing in on Lucian's locations, capture expected within the hour. Adriana felt a weight lift from her chest, a dangerous early taste of peace. Not yet, Chen warned. We still have a trial, and his sharks are already circling, but this is progress. Chen's radio crackled. Her face hardened as she listened. He's not at any of his properties. He's vanished. The air turned to ice. Someone on the inside talked. A muscle knotted in Chen's jaw. We have eyes on every airport, every station. But Ethan shook his head, offering a darker, psychological read. He isn't running. That's not his profile. He saw Lucian preparing for battle. Vincent said he was consolidating assets. He's preparing for war. Marcus hustled them into an armored vehicle. Protocol was simple. Fall back to the safe house and wait for word of Lucian's capture. The plan dissolved the second they left the garage as a black SUV fell in behind them. We've got company, Marcus said, his voice level, his eyes locked on the rear-view mirror. Lose them, Chen ordered from the passenger seat. Marcus threw the vehicle into a series of sharp turns, but their shadow mirrored every move. A second SUV appeared, confirming their worst fears. It's a coordinated trap, Marcus called out. They're hurting us somewhere. Chen's weapon was already in her hand. Get us to the federal building now! But the hostile cars boxed them in, forcing them from the city's heart toward the skeletal ruins of the industrial sector. A third vehicle cut off Marcus's escape. They were pinned, stopped before a derelict factory. The engine rumbled as Marcus scanned for an escape. Armed figures poured out of the SUVs. Situation is compromised, Chen spoke into her radio. Need backup now. The driver's window exploded inward. Marcus cried out, blood blooming on his shoulder as Chen returned fire. Adriana curled into a ball in the back as Ethan shielded her with his own body, glass raining down around them. We have to get out, Ethan yelled. They're here to kill everyone but you. Open to ideas, Chen snapped, slamming a new magazine home. The factory. We get inside, find cover, and wait for the cavalry. That's a terrible plan. Got a better one? Chen fired 3 more shots, then grabbed for her radio. A bullet ripped it from her hand, showering the car in shattered plastic. They were alone. At Chen's signal, they burst from the car, sprinting through a storm of bullets toward the factory door. The wounded Marcus laid down cover fire. They tumbled inside just as the doorframe splintered behind them. The space was a cavern of rusted machines and lurking shadows. How long for backup? Ethan demanded. 15 minutes, maybe 20. Chen settled into a position with a clean shot at the door. We hold here. From outside, they could hear the calm, coordinated voices of their attackers. This was not a rabid assault, but a siege. Time, numbers, and weapons were all on their side. This is because of me, Adriana whispered, the guilt crushing her. This is because Lucian is a textbook narcissist, incapable of processing rejection, Ethan shot back. You don't own his madness. His voice was absolute. You chose correctly. A figure burst through the door and was dropped 2 precise shots from Chen's pistol. The others fell back to regroup. A heavy silence descended, punctuated only by the ragged sound of Marcus fighting for every breath. The sharp ring of her phone cut through the tension. Lucian, Adriana acknowledged, placing the call on speaker. Admiring the factory. His voice was a flat line of calm. I used to own this place. Then he laid out his terms. Give me what I have always desired. You walk out that door, get into my car, and your friends can walk away? A simple trade. You'll murder them anyway. Possibly, but saying no ensures they die. Your new husband, the agent, your protector, their deaths will be on you for refusing to face facts. He waited a beat. You have 5 minutes to choose. Then the line went dead. You are not walking out there. That is off the table. He'll slaughter every one of you if I don't. He'll likely do that no matter what. Men like Lucian never leave loose ends. Chen checked her sidearm. We hold our ground. Adriana, however, was watching Marcus fade, his skin ashen, his breath shallow. Red seeped through the crude bandage. His condition was dire. There has to be another way, Ethan urged, his eyes tracing the walls for an escape route. I've already run the tactical, Chen cut in. This building is a death trap. 1 entrance, sealed windows, and Lucian's men have every angle zeroed. Adriana watched the countdown on her screen. Lucian's 5-minute ultimatum ticking away. 3 minutes left. What if I try to bargain? She asked. To buy us some time. He doesn't bargain. He wins, Chen stated, her voice flat. And his victory is you in his custody and all of us in the ground. 2 minutes. Her mind flashed through a montage of defiance, fleeing the wedding, her public statement, the viral evidence that demolished his public persona. She fought so hard for this freedom, now weighing it against the lives of those who guarded it. I'm going, she declared. No. Ethan grabbed her arm. Listen to me. I'll go out and talk to him. I can stall them until backup gets here. That's crazy. You know what he's capable of. I know what he'll do to you all if somebody doesn't do something. Adriana pulled her arm free. This is my choice, Ethan, for once. Static crackled from Chen's radio. ETA 10 minutes. Hold fast. 10 minutes. She knew she could buy them 10 minutes. Rising against their protests, she walked to the door and shouted, Lucian, I am coming out. Alone. Let the others leave. A beat of silence, then Lucian's voice. A wise decision. Emerge slowly with your hands in sight. Adriana stepped into the blinding sun. Rifles centered on her but did not fire. Lucian stood by an SUV, his expensive suit and composure a stark contrast to the violent scene. Adriana, he said, his tone deceptively casual. You've made things exceedingly complicated. You slept with my cousin on our wedding day. That is irrelevant now, he gestured for his men. Let's go, we have a great deal to discuss. The FBI is on its way. You expect to avoid arrest? I have avoided the Bureau for 20 years. I imagine I can handle a few more hours. Lucian pulled the SUV door open. Get in. Adriana remained motionless. What is the endgame, Lucian? Kill Ethan and Agent Chen? Pile more capital charges onto your indictment? The charges will never stick. They never do. His certainty was absolute. My legal team is already filing to suppress evidence. They would claim coercion, illegal wiretaps, and tainted proof to have the case thrown out. Vincent's testimony is ironclad, which means Vincent will be handled before trial. Betrayal has consequences. A muscle in Lucian's jaw twitched. Now get in the vehicle unless you want your friends to die for your defiance. She sensed movement behind her, Ethan preparing for a foolishly heroic move. She kept Lucian's focus locked on her. Why do you even want me back? She pressed. I humiliated you, wrecked your reputation. Most of Chicago sees you as a monster now. I am a monster, Lucian confirmed, stepping closer. But you knew my nature when you consented to marry me. That agreement makes you my property. My consent was a transaction to save my father. Now your own father is ruined. His assets are frozen. His debts are due. His name is worthless. This is because of your ego. Lucian's hand snapped around her wrist. You threw your own family away to save yourself. How is that different from my way of doing things? The accusation hit home, echoing her own secret guilt. Her father's business was gone, her mother was estranged, and Isabella's texts laid all the blame on her. The collateral damage from her escape was immense, but she remembered his hand on her neck, his cold certainty of her obedience, the way he looked at her like a possession. It makes me my own person, she said softly. And that is worth more than anything you can offer. Lucian's grip tightened to a bruising force. You are not your own person. You never will be. If you get away today, you'll spend your life looking over your shoulder, waiting for me to collect. Then I suppose you'll be waiting too for the federal case you'll never beat. Or waiting for a man on your payroll to decide the bounty on your head is worth more than his loyalty. Adriana held his stare. You aren't invincible, Lucian. Today proved it. For a fraction of a second, an expression crossed his face. Not fear, but doubt. Then sirens screamed through the air, dozens of them approaching fast. Lucian's jaw set. Put her in the car now. His men moved in, but Chen opened fire from the factory doorway. Ethan laid down covering fire from the other side. Lucian's men scattered, shooting back. In the mayhem, Adriana broke free and ran. She was caught almost instantly. Lucian yanked her in front of him, a human shield with a gun pressed to her temple. Everybody cease fire, Lucian bellowed. Stop shooting, or I kill her right now. The guns went silent. FBI cruisers formed a perimeter, but no one had a clean shot. Lucian used Adriana as cover. "Let her go!" Chen shouted. "It is over, Moretti. There is nowhere to run." "Watch me," Lucian snarled, dragging her toward the SUV, the gun firm against her head. "You follow, she dies. You shoot, she dies. If you want her alive, you let us go." Adriana's mind began to spin. She felt his heart hammering against her back, smelled the sweat of his fear, the desperation in his grip. Being cornered made him infinitely more dangerous. "Ethan," she called out, her voice clear. "Remember our talk about being brave?" "Don't," Ethan pleaded, his face a ghostly white. "Bravery is not being without fear," she continued, her eyes locked on his. "It's acting when you are terrified." She then snapped her head back into Lucian's face. His hold faltered for a second, and she twisted free. In that instant, 3 shots cracked the air. Lucian stumbled, crimson blooming across his chest. His pistol clattered onto the asphalt. He glanced down at the wounds, then looked at Adriana with an expression of pure shock. "You," he whispered before he collapsed. Agents swarmed forward as the last of his men surrendered. Ethan sprinted to Adriana, pulling her away from Lucian's body as he checked her over. "Are you hurt?" "I'm fine," Adriana said as the post-adrenaline shakes began. "Medic!" Chen yelled from over Lucian. "Get a medic here now!" They began first aid on the pavement, but Adriana could see the severity of the damage. The grouping of the shots was tight, professional, and meant to be fatal. An ambulance arrived, sirens wailing. They moved Lucian, his skin gray, his breath shallow. As they loaded him, his gaze found Adriana's. "This is not over," he rasped. But it was. Adriana saw the limpness in his limbs and the blood soaking through the bandages. Lucian Moretti, the kingpin of Chicago's criminal empire, was dying. The ambulance doors slammed. The sirens faded as it sped away. Adriana stood in the chaos, agents securing the scene, medics tending to the wounded, news crews gathering, and felt only a profound, drowning exhaustion. Ethan's arm was a steady, warm anchor. "It's done," he said. She wanted to believe it, but Lucian's last words were like a splinter in her mind. "This is not over." Chen approached, her expression grim. "We have to get you clear before this becomes a media circus. We'll need statements, but first..." "Will he make it?" Adriana cut in. Chen paused. "Paramedics say it's 50-50. If he lives, the list of charges, attempted murder, kidnapping, assaulting federal officers, guarantees he dies in a cell. Death or prison, the man who wanted to own her was now just a medical crisis and a court file." Adriana should have felt relief, or even victory. She felt nothing but weariness. At the federal building, giving a preliminary statement, she kept expecting her phone to ring, with Lucian's calm voice detailing another impossible escape. It was a symptom of the control he'd had over her, but her phone remained silent. At 8 in the evening, Chen found them. "Lucian Moretti expired at 6:43 p.m., she said plainly. "He never regained consciousness. It is over." Over. The word seemed too small for everything that had just ended. Months of terror and violence, undone by 3 bullets and 1 final miscalculation. "What's the next step?" Ethan asked. "The cleanup. Tearing down his network, seizing his money, years of court battles." Chen sat down. "But for you two, you are free. No more safe houses or protection details. You can have your lives back." Adriana said the word free in her head, trying to make it feel real. The fight for freedom had stretched on for so long, she'd forgotten the feeling of peace, of existing without a constant threat assessment. "What about my family?" she asked. Their security detail is gone tomorrow. If they choose to see you, Chen shrugged. That is beyond my authority. That is not a problem I can solve. Understood. Adriana silently admitted she had carved the canyon between them. Reaching across to parents who could not fathom her choices was an impossible task. They walked out of the building after midnight, completely exposed. Marcus drove them to a generic hotel, an outpost of normalcy where Adriana could sign her own name and breathe the air of autonomy. Inside, she watched the Chicago skyline glitter. A version of herself was still living out there, somewhere in that constellation of lights. The only real question was if she wanted to find her. Your thoughts are practically screaming, Ethan noted. What are we now? She asked. Our marriage was a strategy against Lucian. The threat is gone, so what is the arrangement? A pause. You get to decide that. Don't lay that on me. I'm not. It was a transaction. My protection for your legal standing. If you want to end it, I will sign the papers. No questions asked. His eyes held hers. Or we can figure out what this is without a gun to your head. Adriana studied him, the man who had walked into the fire for her time and again, who had tied his fate to hers in a high-stakes gamble. I don't know what I want, she admitted, her voice hollow. I've only focused on surviving. I never planned for an after. Then take your time. The clock isn't ticking. Ethan headed for the bedroom. Rest. In the morning, we can start building a new definition of normal. The subject, Adriana, found the concept of a normal baseline elusive. It was unclear if she even wished to return to such a state. She awoke to raw sunlight, a world without the bullet-resistant glass of her gilded cage. The armed guards were gone. The security system's hum was silenced. Only the low thrum of the city drifted through the quiet. After months of sleeping with one eye open, she had finally found deep rest. Ethan was already awake at a desk, his face lit by a laptop, a coffee cup steaming beside him. He glanced up as she emerged. Morning, there's more coffee? She poured mug and sat across from him. She asked what he was doing. Damage control. The corporation took a blow. Stocks fell. Investors got spooked and pulled their money. The board was in a panic. He relayed this with zero distress. It's all fixable. It just takes time. Her apology died on her lips. Don't. His voice was firm but not unkind. I made my choice. I knew the stakes. She still insisted on blaming herself for his financial hit. He shut her down. I lost money because Lucian was a monster who couldn't handle rejection. That's different. Ethan closed his laptop. Besides, money can be replaced. You can't. The gravity of the sentence filled the room. Adriana tried to untangle her feelings. Was this bond real, or just an instinct to cling to her protector? A call from her sister, Sophia, broke through her thoughts. Audrey. Her sister's voice was thin with worry. Are you okay? I saw the news about Lucian and the firefight and... I'm fine. We're both fine. Thank God. I kept calling. It went straight to voicemail. Mom said the FBI confirmed you were safe, but gave no details. Sophia took a breath to steady herself. Can I see you? What about Mom and Dad? Do they? Adriana couldn't form the rest of the question. Dad is still livid. Mom is still a wreck, but I am not them. Sophia's voice gained strength. You're my sister. I want to see you. They agreed to meet for lunch, choosing a busy public cafe as neutral territory. Ethan's offer to join her was refused. This is something I have to do alone. His reply, call if you need an exit, was a clear promise of support, a reminder of his role as her shield. Sophia was already at an outdoor table when Adriana arrived, her face hidden behind dark sunglasses. She stood as Adriana approached. They shared a long look before Sophia closed the distance in a fierce hug. "You're really here," Sophia whispered into her shoulder. I was so terrified. The news kept talking about a shootout, about casualties, and I thought, "I'm okay, I promise." Adriana held her just as tight. "How are you?" Sophia pulled away, a laugh catching in her throat. "I'm not the one who spent 3 weeks fleeing the Mafia. I think that's my line." Once seated, they ordered food, neither would touch, and began to talk. Sophia described their parents' situation. Their father's businesses were bleeding out as suppliers cut all ties. Clients had disappeared. The debt owed to Lucian's organization was now being called in by his successors. In just 3 weeks, their father, Marco, looked like a broken man. "He blames you," Sophia said, her voice devoid of emotion. "He says your selfishness ruined this family to save yourself. Maybe he's right." Adriana stared at her plate. "Maybe I should have just married Lucian, played the good wife, and kept everyone safe." "And do what? Let him own you for the rest of your life?" Sophia's tone was sharp. "Let him hit you for not smiling right, or cheat on you constantly, or worse? Audrey, you saw the monster he was. You can't possibly wish you'd stayed?" "I think there were other paths that didn't end with Dad losing everything." "Dad is losing everything because he made a deal with the devil to hide his own bad bets. That is on him." Sophia reached across the table, covering Adriana's hand with her own. "You are not responsible for his messes. You never have been." Mom wouldn't agree. "Mom has spent 40 years justifying his mistakes. She won't stop now." Sophia's face softened. "But she will come around. She's hurt and afraid, but she's not an idiot. She knows who Lucian was." "And you? Are you mad at me?" Sophia waited a beat. "At first I was. When the feds put us in a safe house. When Dad just screamed about how you destroyed us. But then I considered what you did. You ran from a man who would have devoured you whole. You chose to live." A faint smile appeared on her lips. "I think it's the bravest thing I've ever seen." Adriana felt her throat tighten. "I didn't feel brave. I was just scared." "Bravery is just being terrified and moving forward anyway." Sophia squeezed her hand. "So, what's next? You're married to Ethan Caldwell. Are you staying with him?" "I have no idea. It was all supposed to be a contract, a legal firewall to keep Lucian away from me, but it doesn't feel like a contract anymore." Adriana pulled her hand away, cradling her coffee cup. "He was there for it all. Every attack, every threat, every second I was sure I would die. And he never demanded anything." "Sounds to me like you care about him." "I don't know what I feel. I've been running on adrenaline for so long. I can't tell gratitude from real emotion." Sophia watched her. "Do you want to stay with him?" "I want to make a choice that isn't motivated by fear or debt. I want to find out who I am without Lucian's shadow over me. Then maybe I can know what I truly want." "That's fair." Sophia glanced at her phone, and her mood shifted. "I need to go. Dad's waiting. If I'm not on time, he'll think I've joined the conspiracy against him." They hugged one last time and parted. As she was leaving, Sophia said, "You did the right thing, Audrey. Don't let a single person make you think you didn't." Adriana watched her sister melt back into the city, trying to absorb the words. When she got back to the hotel, Ethan was on a call. She gave him a small wave before slipping into the bedroom to think. Her phone buzzed. A text from a number she didn't recognize sent a jolt of alarm through her until she saw the name, Rebecca Torres. The networks all want an interview. Book publishers are making offers. You're the story they're all chasing. Interested? Adriana read the text. A month ago, her answer would have been a fast and final no. Back then, all she craved was to be invisible again. Now she typed back, "Maybe, can we speak?" Rebecca called instantly. "You're really considering this?" "I'm considering many things. What are the offers exactly?" "Everything. Primetime specials, memoirs, speaking tours. You're the woman who went up against the mob and won. People want your version of the story, and if I refuse, they'll just invent one. The tabloids, the cheap biographies, the awful TV movies that get it all wrong." Rebecca's voice was pragmatic. "If you get involved, you control your own story." Control. She noticed that word coming up again and again. For months, Adriana had possessed zero control over her own existence. Now the world was offering to hand it back to her. "Let me think on it," she said. "Don't think too long. This kind of spotlight fades fast." After hanging up, she sat in the silence, weighing the proposal. Telling her story could be a warning, a shield for others facing the same darkness, but it meant she would have to walk through the fire of her trauma again, this time before an audience who could never understand the burns. Ethan stood in the frame of the door. "Are you all right?" "Rebecca thinks I should do interviews, share what happened. I'm a headline now, it seems." "You are. That press conference clip has 30 million views." He leaned into the doorway. "What is it you want to do?" "I'm not sure. There's a part of me that wants to help. To show them a way out, that they don't have to live under someone's thumb. But another part of me just wants to burn the memory of it all." "Both can be true." Ethan crossed the room to sit near her. "You don't have to choose the second. Breathe. Find out what you need first." "And you? What do you need?" Adriana's eyes found his. "For weeks, your whole world has been about keeping me safe. But what about you? What do you really want?" A heavy silence hung in the air before Ethan spoke. "I want to go home, sleep in my bed, run my company again, and find a new normal that doesn't involve death threats." "And us? What do you want for us?" "That's not my call to make. This marriage was a shield. If you don't need that shield anymore," his eyes met hers, "then you decide what comes next. No strings, no debts. Whatever you want, I'll back your play. Even if that means a divorce. Even then." His voice was unwavering. "You've had your choices made for you by too many people. I refuse to be one of them." Adriana searched his face, trying to read the truth behind the man's resolve. He was handing her absolute freedom for their future. It was the perfect textbook thing to do. She couldn't explain the hollow ache it left inside her. "I need time," she finally said, "to find out who I am without all this. Without Lucian, the fear, the chase." Adriana stayed in Chicago for another week. The time was consumed by legal proceedings. She gave a sworn statement to the U.S. attorney, testified to a grand jury on Lucian's network, and helped the FBI put names to the faces of his cronies. The process was a brutal excavation, making her relive every traumatic detail. But there was a strange peace in it, too. With every retelling, the story lost some of its hold on her. Fear was hardened into fact. Trauma was shaped into testimony. She was slowly taking back the narrative of her own mind. On the 5th day, her mother called, her voice tight with strain. "Your father and I need to see you." They met at her parents' house in Lake Forest. Nothing had changed, Yet everything was different through her eyes. She saw the heavy drapery of better years, the framed photos of a family that was a fiction, and felt the suffocating weight of the expectations that had shaped her. In his study, her father seemed smaller, aged. Her mother stood by the window, a statue of defense. "Sophia said you wanted to talk," Adriana began, choosing to stand. Marco looked up, his face drawn. "Our lawyer called. Lucian's estate is calling in the debt, $17 million plus the interest. They're moving to seize everything, the restaurants, this house. I'm so sorry." "Are you?" His voice was acid. "You broke the deal that kept us afloat. Your little act of defiance, marrying that man, has cost us everything. I married him to stay alive. Your life was never in danger. Lucian would have kept you safe and provided for you." "Lucian put a gun to my head 3 weeks ago," Adriana said, her voice a flat, cold line. "He put contracts out on the people who helped me. He would have killed Ethan just for marrying me. So yes, Dad, my life was in danger from the man you sold me to." Marco flinched. "I didn't sell you, it was business. A deal that worked out for everyone but me. You would have gotten used to it. You would have learned to manage, like others do, like your mother did." Adriana's gaze shifted to her mother. "Is that what you wanted for me? A life like yours, where I pretend to be happy while my husband does whatever he wants?" Lucia's stoic facade finally cracked. "That isn't fair. All my life, I was taught to be quiet. The one time I screamed for myself, you took his side. You put his money ahead of my safety." "We chose the family," Marco shot back. "A family you broke." "No." Adriana's voice was solid steel. "You broke this family when you bet our future on criminals. I just refused to be the payment." A thick silence filled the room, punctuated only by Lucia's muffled sobs. At last, Adriana spoke. "I can't help with the debt, but I can offer something else. Ethan knows bankruptcy lawyers, advisors who can help you restructure. You won't save it all, but you might keep something." "We don't need your charity," Marco said, his jaw tight. "It's not charity. It's me trying to help my family after all of this." She walked to the door. "But I can't help you if you keep blaming me for your mistakes. You have to decide what's more important, your pride or what's left to save." She was gone before they could answer. Sophia was waiting outside, leaning against Adriana's car. "That bad?" she asked. "Father hasn't changed. Mother's still making excuses." Adriana unlocked the doors, but I said what I needed to say. "Good. They don't deserve you, but maybe they'll figure that out someday." Sophia hugged her. "Call me when you're ready to actually talk, not just manage our parents." "I promise." The 40-minute drive back to the hotel was a blur, her mind replaying the look on her mother's face, the raw pain, confusion, and betrayal. Lucia truly believed the marriage to Lucian was the right path, choosing security over freedom. It was a lie she told herself to justify a similar choice she'd made 30 years ago. Maybe seeing Adriana fight back was like watching her younger self make a braver choice. When she got back, Ethan was packing. "I have to go, alone. I'm needed at the office. There's a board meeting I can't miss and problems that need me there in person." He zipped his suitcase shut. "But you should stay if you need more time with your family." "I don't need more time. I need an ocean." Adriana sat down. "Can I come with you to Boston?" "Of course, I've never been. A new city might do me some good." Ethan smiled faintly. "Sure. Book a flight. I'll see you there." "We're married. Can't we just fly together?" "We can. I just didn't want to assume. There it was again, his careful, relentless effort to give her space. It should have felt like a kindness. Instead, it just felt like being alone. They flew to Boston that night. Ethan's home was a converted warehouse overlooking the harbor, all exposed brick and massive windows, sparsely furnished but warm. The guest room was already prepared for her, a clear sign. "Get settled," Ethan said, carrying her bag inside. "I'll be in the office most of tomorrow, but the kitchen's full and the Wi-Fi password is on the counter." "Ethan," Adriana stopped him, "you don't have to handle me like a visitor. I'm just trying to give you room to breathe." "I know, but maybe space isn't what I need. Maybe I need—" She trailed off, the words lost to her. Need what? Adriana's mind flashed through the last month, not just the terror and the running, but the small anchors. Ethan's hand steady on hers, his body shielding her from bullets. "I need to know if any of this was real," she whispered, "or if we were just a product of adrenaline and circumstance." Ethan set her bag down. "What do you want it to have been?" "That's not an answer." "Because I won't steer you. You've had enough men telling you what you feel and what you want. And I won't be another one. What if I want you to? What if I need to know what you're thinking instead of always having to guess?" Ethan was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "I think you're the strongest person I have ever met. Watching you walk away from Lucian is the bravest thing I've ever seen. I think you deserve every good thing this world has to offer." He paused. "And I think I want to be in your life, but only if it's what you choose, with no gratitude or debt involved. It has to be because you want me there." Adriana's pulse quickened. "And if I do want you here, then I want to take you to dinner, a real date. No FBI agents, no safe houses, no one trying to kill us, just two people trying to see if this thing between us is real." A slow smile spread across her face. "I'd like that." The date was 2 nights later, at a little Italian restaurant in the North End, cozy but not pretentious. And they talked about everything except Lucian and the danger they had left behind. Their histories were a study in contrast, his shaped by a mother's shelter work, hers by a teaching dream denied by family ruin. Her link to Sophia was a tangled knot, her joy a secret love for old films. "I haven't set foot in a cinema for years," she confessed. "Lucian said our sort watched films in private, shielded from the masses. Would you want to go after this?" So they sat in the back of a late show, the action on screen a meaningless blur against the smell of popcorn. In the flickering dark, his hand found hers, not a gesture of protection this time, but one of connection. The kiss that followed was slow and without demand. It held none of Lucian's bruising possession, nor the hollow performance of their wedding. It was a silent question from Ethan, which she answered by leaning into him. They parted slowly, his forehead resting against hers. "Do you still need time to be certain?" he whispered. "I believe my certainty is growing," she answered with another kiss. "Stay. Are you sure?" "For the first time in my life, completely." The weeks that followed found a fragile, normal rhythm. While he worked, she began the careful process of therapy, guided by a specialist who let her lead the way back to herself. She started to write, too. What began as a journal to untangle her thoughts became something more after Rebecca called. Adriana agreed to write a book. Not a salacious memoir, but a practical guide for women navigating the shadows of a controlling relationship, created with experts. The work was an agonizing excavation of memory, forcing her to see the warning signs she'd ignored and map the architecture of Lucian's control. But in this process, her pain was forged into a purpose. 3 months after Lucian's death, she returned to Chicago for Sophia's graduation. Her mother was there, a careful distance between them. Yet the embrace after the ceremony held a moment too long. "I'm trying to understand," Lucia murmured, "what you did. Why? It's difficult, but I'm trying." "That is all I could ever ask," Adriana said. Her father was not in attendance. Her father remained consumed by the wound to his pride from his financial ruin. Adriana, however, was already finding a healthy distance. 6 months after the wedding charade, Agent Chen delivered the news. The syndicate was dismantled. The sweep resulted in 47 arrests, including 3 cops and a state senator. "His entire criminal network is gone," Chen reported with clinical precision. Vincent Delgado's testimony broke it open. The agent elaborated. "He is now a protected asset with a new life, but his help was vital." "And Isabella?" Adriana had to ask. Chen's face remained a mask. "Last seen in Miami, working as a paralegal." Her rival tried to sell her version of events, but Adriana's book deal made her story irrelevant. Adriana felt no victory in this, only a profound exhaustion. Isabella had followed her nature to its end. Adriana had followed hers. Both now lived with the results of their choices. 8 months following the perpetrator's demise, her book was released. Breaking Free, A Survivor's Guide to Leaving Coercive Control became an instant bestseller. Adriana began speaking publicly, and she channeled 50% of all profits to shelters for abuse victims. She was transforming from a subject of trauma to an agent of change. She was no longer a victim, but simply Adriana, building a new identity. A year after the ordeal, Ethan brought her to his mother's Seattle home. There, Margaret Caldwell, the woman who had forged his character, observed them with a sharp, perceptive empathy. She saw the calm Adriana brought to her son, noting, "So you're the one who finally got him to slow down." Over dessert, Margaret spoke of her own escape from a destructive marriage, recalling the fear and the urge to turn back. "But each day was a small step forward," she concluded. "I eventually found my peace alone." "How long did that take?" Adriana asked. "Years, but it was worth the fight." Margaret gave her hand a reassuring squeeze. "You are far ahead of where I was at your age. Your future is bright." After dinner, they walked by the water as the sky burned with sunset, and Ethan stopped by a bench. "I have to ask you something," he started. Adriana felt her heart quicken. "This marriage has been a legal document for 1 year, but we've never defined it." He turned to her. "So, I am asking you now, do you want to stay married to me, not for safety, but because it is your own true choice?" Her mind replayed the last year, the therapy, the words on the page, the careful rebuilding of her soul. She thought of Ethan's steadfast support, his respect for her agency. He was her anchor. "I want to stay married," she said, her voice firm. "But we do it differently this time, not as an escape, but as a destination." Ethan's smile was slow and warm. "What's the protocol?" "A real wedding, small with only our true family, Sophia, your mother, Agent Chen, if he can make it, Marcus, if he's well enough, no 300 guests, no Italian villa. No performance, just us, making our own decision." "I find those terms acceptable," Ethan said, before pulling a small box from his jacket. "I've been carrying this for 3 months, waiting for the right moment. Your moment." He opened it. Inside sat a simple ring, a quiet contrast to the blinding diamond Lucian had given her. It was a slim band holding a single, small stone. "Adriana Varley Caldwell," Ethan said. "Will you marry me again? For real this time?" Tears she had forbidden herself to cry began to fall. Yes, absolutely yes. The ring slid onto her finger, a perfect fit. They were married 2 months later in Margaret's garden in Seattle. Sophia stood beside Adriana, her staunchest support. Marcus, his shoulder still healing, stood with Ethan. Agent Chen attended in street clothes, his professional guard down. Rebecca Torres was there, her notebook closed. Adriana wore a simple white dress that she had chosen. It was not a designer creation, but something that felt like her. As Ethan's fingers laced with hers, she felt a profound shift in her body. The hypervigilance was gone. There was no escape plan. There was only choice. The vows they wrote were short and true. He promised to support her healing, whether with presence or with space. She promised to trust, to be open, and to build something healthy. After the ceremony, Ethan leaned in and whispered, "They say the third time's the charm." She laughed as they kissed, the moment feeling like a true beginning. The reception was a casual affair with barbecue and local beer. Sophia found her near the dessert table. "You look truly happy," her sister said. "I am. Is that so odd?" "No," Sophia said, embracing her. "It's perfect. You earned this, Audrey, all of it." As the evening softened, Adriana found a quiet moment with Margaret Caldwell. Ethan's mother handed her a glass of wine by the water. "Thank you," Adriana said quietly, "for raising him to be the kind of man who helps. I only taught him that everyone deserves a chance to rewrite their own story. He did the hard part himself." Margaret watched the water. "Some advice? Don't let the trauma be your only chapter. It happened, but it isn't the whole book. Scars just prove you were stronger than what tried to hurt you." Margaret's eyes were kind. "Go write the rest of your story however you wish. You've won that right." Adriana's mind went to her book, to the foundation she and Ethan were starting, to the women who wrote to her, saying she'd given them the courage to leave. She thought of how Lucian wanted her small and silent, a possession, and how she had become his exact opposite, visible, vocal, and free. "I think I've already started," Adriana replied. 18 months after a wedding, that was both an end and a beginning, she stood before 500 people at a conference. She knew this speech by heart, but the tremor in her voice was still there, a ghost of the past. She pushed on. She spoke of recognizing the subtle tactics of control, of explaining away red flags, and of how love can become fused with danger. She spoke of the day she decided to live. She described the aftermath, the jagged path of healing, and the slow work of reclaiming one's self. The applause at the end was thunderous, but that wasn't what mattered. The true measure of her words was in the faces of the women who approached the stage afterward. Their stories echoed her own. "That was my life," they whispered. They sought lifelines, resources, a sliver of hope. Adriana offered everything she could. "At the room's edge," Ethan observed, leaning against a wall with pride shadowing his face. Once the space was empty, he closed the distance and held her. "You were magnificent," he murmured. "I was petrified. Bravery and fear often occupy the same space," he reminded her. A faint smile touched her lips as she pulled away. "Shall we escape this place?" "Absolutely." They stepped into the Chicago night, hands clasped. The city, once a hostile grid, now felt like their territory. Her phone buzzed, a text from Sophia. "Dinner next week? Mother is asking for you." A fragile truce. Adriana showed Ethan the glowing screen. He raised a questioning brow. Do you believe she's prepared? The variables are uncertain, but if she's willing, so am I. She typed her agreement, darkening the phone. We should head to the airport. We have a flight to catch. Boston awaited them, as did their shared home. It was the feeling of true permanence, of putting down roots. Ethan's company had flourished despite the previous year's chaos. Adriana's foundation was growing, a haven for more women each month. They were building a life. It was imperfect, marked by clashes over her trauma's echoes and his obsessive work. But it was honest, transparent, and theirs by choice. In the airport's current of people, Adriana watched the constellations pass. Families, lovers, solitary travelers, each held a private universe of struggle, of moments when they chose to survive. Where has your mind gone? Ethan asked softly. To how far we've come, to the chasm between who we were then and who we are now. Had he asked about regrets, her mind would flash through the wreckage, the broken wedding, the desperate flight, the bloody end of Lucienne, and the slow climb back. No, she answered, the word a final judgment on her past. Good, he said. I have something for you when we get home. What is it? She asked. A surprise, he replied, pressing a kiss to her temple. Trust me. And she did. This was the antithesis of the bond that nearly fractured her psyche. It was built on trust earned, freedom granted, and a love that was chosen, not coerced. Their flight was called over the speakers. They retrieved their bags and moved toward the gate, melting into the crowd as two anonymous figures. Here they were not the fugitive bride and the magnate who orchestrated her escape. They were simply Adriana and Ethan heading home. This invisibility, she thought, was the very definition of freedom. 3 years after the rupture, Adriana commanded a new stage. It was not a wedding altar, a press conference, or a courtroom, but the launch of her foundation. Housed in a repurposed Chicago building, the Varley Caldwell Center for Survivor Support offered a total sanctuary, legal, therapeutic, and residential for women fleeing from catastrophe. Sophia cut the ribbon, a request from Adriana. Their mother was in attendance, her composure fragile with emotion. Their father's absence was marked by a delivery of flowers, a symbol of wounds still healing. The retired agent Chen stood by as a consultant. Marcus, fully healed, commanded the center's security detail. Rebecca Torres reported on the event, her story focused on its vital mission rather than old scandals. Ethan stood close to Adriana, their hands interlocked as they watched the first clients enter. This place will save so many, he said under his breath. That is the entire objective, Adriana whispered back, her grip tightening. They need to see that it is possible, she stated, to escape, to survive, and to rebuild a life. You are the proof, he answered. She was 3 years past the trauma, a time defined by creation, not just survival. The haunting continued. Night terrors, a body wired to flinch, and the soul-deep scars from Lucian's cruelty. But she also held this power, a foundation that would help thousands. She had a marriage founded on respect and choice. Her sister was her strongest ally. Her work had meaning. Her voice held weight. Her life was her own. That night, they stood together on the center's rooftop overlooking the city's sprawl. Do you remember asking me what I wanted? She began. In the hotel after Lucian died, I had no answer. I didn't exist outside of the fear. She turned to face him fully. I know now. I choose this. All of it. The work, this foundation, my fractured family, and us. Something born of survival that became something real. A true smile graced her lips. I want to keep building this, helping others, and choosing myself every day. Ethan pulled her into his arms. That sounds perfect. It's not perfect, it is simply mine. Even better, he murmured. They stayed there while the sun bled out over Chicago. Two people who found each other in the wreckage and built something that would last. The city spread out below, a web of countless other stories, other battles for autonomy. Adriana imagined that somewhere out there, another woman was at the same precipice she had faced 3 years ago, trying to separate fear from love and control from care. Adriana hoped she would find her way to the center and to her own beginning. Freedom's nature is to be both terrifying and precious, justifying any risk. It is worth burning down the familiar to fight a war that seems impossible. It demands choosing yourself over and over until the action becomes instinct. Adriana learned this lesson through fire, and the knowledge was now a permanent part of who she was.